Blitz liked to think of himself as a proud father. Loona may have been going through a phase since, well, actually as long as he could remember. But he could say he had always done right by her. He had a lot of regrets in life that sometimes he looked back on and cursed himself for, such as letting people like Verosika and Robo-Fizz walk all over him, such as not having the damn balls to visit his own sister in rehab to look her in the eye and say, well, anything. That damn poster in the office was a constant reminder of his cowardice. But for the memories it represented, Blitz could never bring himself to remove it. But for all the ups and downs there have been, him being a father for his Looney, that was the one thing he had not fucked up. Loona was everything to him, and he'd be damned twice over before he ever failed her as a parent, adoptive as he may be. So when he entered the room he'd chased the human into only to find his daughter, his Loona, lying on the ground with blood pooling from wounds she had quite obviously inflicted on herself. Blitz couldn't help but let out a wail of anguish, with tears forming in his eyes as the only fucking thing that mattered in his sad excuse for an existence was dying right in front of him. And there wasn't a damn thing he could do about it.
Hey.
Blitz knelt and cradled his daughter's head in his lap, tears rolling down his face and wetting her fur.
Please don't do this. Please, Loona. Please don't go. Don't leave. Stay with me. Daddy's here. Daddy's right here. He'll do better. I promise. He'll do better. Fuck. Don't listen to this fucking book. You can have it. Fuck IMP. Doesn't matter. Take my business. Take whatever I had with Stolas. Please. God, just take me instead. Don't take her from me, please.
A small wet gasp of air left him as he realized that, for the first time in his life, he was actually praying.
Please, I know I don't deserve it. She's everything to me. Please don't do this. Don't take my baby girl. God, there's too much blood.
Hey!
Snapping back into reality, with the sharp voice right next to him, Blitz turned to see the human they had been fighting just seconds ago now staring at him, part of his uniform torn and wrapped around one of Loona's wrists as he tried to put pressure on the wound. The fabric was already starting to soak red. The human smacked him then, staining his cheek with blood and dragging Blitz's attention back to him.
If her biology is anything like a human's, then she only has a few minutes left, so wake the fuck up and listen to me.
The human shouted. On the other side of his daughter was Moxxie and Millie digging through a medkit they had just snagged off the wall across the room, and were in the process of applying gauze to his daughter's other wrist. It seemed unlike Blitz, those two had not frozen in the moment, and had sprung into action trying to mend Loona while he sat aside useless. Blitz looked into the eyes of the human who had the appearance of someone who hadn't properly slept or ate in a long time. Yet there was a fire in those eyes that Blitz clung to. It meant Loona was still with him, that the human, for whatever reason, was determined to keep her alive. In that moment, all the fear and grief holding Blitz paralyzed vanished, and he laid Loona's head back down gently. Loona needed him. Time for Dad to wake the fuck up.
What do I need to do?
The human gestured to the strips of fabric in his hands, and Blitz came next to him and took over applying pressure to the wound.
Keep pressure on that wound while I apply the tourniquet. We need to slow down the blood loss as much as possible. Same for you.
He gestured over to Millie while Moxxie was pressing gauze onto her other wrist.
Start applying the tourniquet to her other arm about 2 or 3 inches above the wound.
Millie was starting to shake in place as she stared back and forth at the medkit and his daughter.
I don't know how. I mean, I've never...
Millie jumped a few feet in the air before turning around to see another human dressed in some weird Halloween costume, with black robes covering his body and a white beaked mask peeking out from the hood. Said human snagged the tourniquet from Millie's grasp before kneeling down and, in a flash, had applied it to Loona's arm. He had clearly done this many times before. He shooed Moxxie and Millie aside as he reached into the bag and pulled out a variety of instruments that in no way should have fit in there at the same time. A voice sounding like it was echoing from the mask mumbled as he applied gauze onto Loona's wrists.
My veterinarian practice is still rudimentary, but the subject surprisingly seems to share many characteristics with other humanoids. How interesting.
The mask snapped up to the human across from him and instructed.
Go prepare a space in the medical center. The red ones can assist me here should I need it. Bring a gurney once it's ready. Her condition will need to be monitored through the night.
The human, with his half-dead appearance, nodded and sprinted off down to wherever the medical center was. That big mask snapped to Blitzø now and instructed him.
Keep pressure on the wound as you're doing until I'm finished with his arm. None of you speak. I require concentration for my work.
With that, the masked human turned back to Loona and was silent as he went to work closing her wounds. As this human, who was apparently some kind of doctor, worked, Blitz gazed through the window into the room that Luna's blood seemed to trail from. Behind thick glass and a metal door that was sealed tight lied an ominous piece of paper with some writing on it. If Blitz looked closely, he could faintly see the last lines on the paper seemed to shine brighter than the rest of the words, as if the ink applied was still fresh. Blitz didn't need to be a detective to deduce what kind of ink had been applied to the writing. Blitz needed answers. He needed to know why the fuck his daughter had run off and almost offed herself just to use her blood to write on that paper. He needed to understand why his daughter was almost taken from him, and who he needed to kill in the most brutal way possible in response. But those answers could wait. There was a more important issue right now. Blitz gazed down at his daughter, her blood soaking his hands. Only the faint rising and falling of her chest told him that she hadn't left him yet. He looked into her eyes, so empty but still containing a faint spark, as his daughter looked back to her father.
That's right, baby girl. You're gonna be okay. Daddy's got you.
And so, God help him, he was never going to let go ever again. Moxxie was still in a state of shock as he looked at his boss sitting by Luna's side, as she laid on the bed in the medical center the humans had brought them to. Sure, Blitz was more often than not the main source of his stress attacks, and he never got along with the Hellhound before. But when he and Millie walked in to see their boss crying over her bleeding body, well, Moxxie would never doubt Blitz again when he spoke of Loona being family. Seeing this side of Blitz, a part of him Moxxie would never have guessed even existed, made Moxxie realize that maybe he didn't know his boss as well as he thought he did. Moxxie put his hand on Blitz's shoulder, which Blitz in turn grasped in his own hand and squeezed tight. Millie came around the other side and wrapped her arms around Blitz, pulling him into a hug as the three imps looked on at the plague doctor treating their hellhound.
Thank you.
Moxxie almost didn't hear the whispered gratitude from Blitz as he stared on at his daughter.
You guys actually helped while I was just frozen. I should have done something. Why didn't I do anything? She could have died and it would have
Enough of that.
Millie stopped her boss before he could go down that road of self-blame and drastic what-ifs.
You helped just as much as we did. She's gonna be fine. The doctor said so. So don't start going off on that nonsense, you hear?
Millie stroked Blitz's head as she gave her words of encouragement. The masked face of the human, who may have been the sole reason Loona was still breathing, looked up at that comment.
I gave no such reassurance. I merely stated I would monitor her through the night and keep her as stable as possible. Her biology is one I'm unfamiliar with, seemingly a hybrid of Canis lupus and Homo sapiens with the dominant traits of the former. However, I can tell you that her condition has improved from her initial injuries. The rate which her body is capable of healing is most fascinating.
The doctor trailed off, ignoring the glares from the three imps and seemingly forgetting that he was talking to anyone in the first place, becoming absorbed in his own thoughts as he examined the hellhound. A chuckle from behind Moxxie drew his attention to the human dressed in some kind of guard uniform that had attacked them when they first arrived, wherever they are. Some kind of research facility? It was big, whatever it was. That much Moxxie could figure out on his own.
What's so funny?
He asked, failing to see the humor in the situation. The guard shook his head.
Believe it or not, 049's bedside manners used to be even worse than that. This is actually a vast improvement for him.
Moxxie had trouble imagining a doctor who had worse manners than this one. One that was still good at their job anyway. Plenty of back alley clinics back at Imp City would bring shame to anyone with a medical profession. Moxxie blinked as a detail the human had said caught his attention.
Wait, what did you call him?
He was confused as to why the man treating Loona was referred to as a number, like he was some kind of prisoner or something. The doctor spoke up, not looking away from his current patient.
The Foundation contains and catalogs all things they deem to be anomalous or otherwise supernatural. My own designation is SCP-049.
The man said this as if it would explain anything, not seeming to realize all he did was provide more questions for the imps. Millie turned back to the guard now, recognizing the designation from the doctor.
You called me that before. An SCP. What the heck does that mean?
And what is this Foundation? What does he mean by supernatural and anomalous? Besides the costume, what's so anomalous about this guy?
Moxxie added, gesturing to the plague doctor. The guard shifted, clearly not ready for the load of questions thrown out at once. After a few moments, the guard sighed.
Look, I get you guys want answers, but I want answers too. You guys broke in here to what? Destroy my journal?
The human took the journal that Blitz had almost torched out of his pocket then, opening it to check for any damage from their scuffle. Before any of the imps could respond, the plague doctor snapped his gaze back up and with a tone of annoyance spoke to all in the room.
I apologize, but what about I require concentration for my work? Do you not understand? I believe that I told you that you needed rest.
The doctor pointed at the guard before turning to the imps.
Then you three need to wash yourselves. You're dripping blood all over my workspace. Clean up and take a bed for the night. You can debrief each other in the morning.
Moxxie looked down at himself and cringed, as he realized he still had Loona's blood on him from when he was bandaging her arm. Looking at his co-workers, it seemed his wife and boss were in a similar state. Millie nodded and moved back to the sink to wash herself the best she could, but Blitz just glared, and even let out a low growl at the doctor. It seemed the mere suggestion that he moved away from his daughter was taken as an insult. The guard shook his head and moved to leave the medical center.
Sorry, Doc, but I need to check out the containment cell for SCP-012. The damn thing should have been locked tight, yet someone opened the cell, leaving it exposed. Never mind the fact that it somehow affected the Hellhound from so far away. Loona, was it?
Moxxie nodded to the human's question while the plague doctor was not happy with the guard's answer. The doctor stepped around the imps and towards the guard. Moxxie could see the man was hiding something in his robes.
If there is a security breach, then 079 will handle it. With how much you've been upgrading the machine's platform, it is safe to bet 079 has already identified the issue. Now, I grant you the arrival of our new guests was a surprise to us both, so I will tell you one last time. You need sleep. You're already struggling to stay on your feet, so choose a bed. Your security issues are handled, and there will be no more surprises under my direct supervision. You have no remaining excuses.
Moxxie started to tense up. That sounded a little too much like a threat. The guard turned around and started walking towards the door.
BS that may, Doc. I'd still like to verify for myself. We already have one person almost dead. I need to make sure that...
In the blink of an eye, the man who identified himself as SCP-049 whipped his arm out and struck a syringe into the neck of the guard before the man could react. After injecting something into the guard, SCP-049 stepped back as the other human turned around wide-eyed at the fact the doctor had just drugged him.
You are getting a fucking bell.
The man slurred out, before collapsing into the doctor's arms. The plague doctor proceeded to drag the man to the bed across from the one Loona was laying in, before returning to his work on the Hellhound. The man proceeded to ignore the slack-jawed expressions of the imps, as he pulled a notebook out from the black bag and started to write something down. Moxxie heard the doctor mutter under his breath.
I swear the pestilence is easier to deal with than that man.
Moxxie didn't know what pestilence he was referring to, but the imp was starting to get a better idea as to why this man was contained by this foundation.
You're not a real doctor, are you?
Blitz asked as he proceeded to follow Millie's example and wash up before the masked man could direct his annoyance onto him.
I am a doctor. Though, not in a sense that you would understand, I suppose.
The doctor put his notebook away and began cleaning his tools.
Now, while you are not prisoners in here, I would not recommend roaming the facility, lest you wish to end up like your companion. There are worse things than that cursed composition that the Foundation kept contained here. A good number of them roam free in the lower levels, now that their wardens are gone.
Moxxie shuddered at the idea of there being more items locked away so close by that had worse powers than the one that affected Loona. Briefly, the mental image of Millie lying on the floor with blood pooling from her wrists floated through his mind before he forced that out of his head. None of that now. They were safe. Loona would be fine, and in the morning they would all go home, and this would be one bad dream.
Rome?
The doctor chuckled.
Well, yes. Not every SCP is simply an inanimate object to be thrown into a box. There are those, like me, who now roam the halls of this facility, all of which are dangerous, especially to those unfamiliar with them, such as yourselves.
Seeing the apprehensive looks the imps were giving him, he quickly tried to reassure them.
Do not be alarmed. Most of them know well enough not to try to harm me or those under my care, and the others don't bother to come to the upper levels in the first place. You are safe here. You have my word. Now get some rest. I will alert you should your hellhound's condition change.
The imps all had questions burning on their minds, but a quick look at the guard in the bed across from Loona was a good reminder that the doctor did not like it when his patients didn't follow orders. Blitz climbed into bed to the right of Loona, while Moxxie and Millie pushed two of the beds together to Luna's left and settled in. As he held his wife in his arms and the doctor dimmed the lights to allow them to rest easier, Moxxie could only hope the worst was behind them. Though there was something that was bothering him that the doctor hadn't explained. His words ran through Moxxie's mind as he looked upon the sleeping guard across the room. A good number of them roam free in the lower levels now that their wardens are gone. It occurred to Moxxie that for as large as this place seemed to be, they hadn't run into anyone besides the plague doctor and that guard. Even here in this medical center. Surely there would be other doctors or nurses or something staffing the place, right? Before his mind could send him into another bout of paranoia, Millie wrapped her arms around her husband and snuggled into his chest. Moxxie smiled at his wife before laying back and closing his eyes. Worry about it tomorrow, he told himself. Enough had happened today. They were all tired, their clothes needed to be washed, and Moxxie felt like he could really use a shower. They had no idea where they were, and they still had no idea why the book wasn't working. And to top it all off, Loona almost died. With things as bad as they were, it's not like they could get any worse, right? As soon as the last red creature ventured into the lands of Morpheus, SCP-049 set aside his tools and moved to the door of the medical center. Oh, the Hellhound would be fine. That was never a question for the Plague Doctor. She was in trouble in the beginning, but the doctor had found out after he had stemmed the blood loss that her body was quite capable of healing rapidly on its own. It was remarkable, really. By his estimates, with exception to scarring on the wrists, she should make an almost full, if not a full recovery by morning. Her biggest issue would be the blood still matting her fur. No, it wasn't an issue of keeping the subject stable. It was an issue to the safety of his patient. He needed to verify if these individuals posed any threat, and if so, deal with them before they caused any further trouble. Justin had filled him in on the details as they were transporting the dying hellhound to the medical center, and while he hadn't expressed it, the doctor was not happy with the story. It had infuriated the plague doctor. He had just left the quarters of his patient, and yet, maybe 5 to 10 minutes later, the room that Justin had dubbed the most safest place in the whole facility was invaded by 4 unknown individuals. SCP-079 claimed that the cameras never saw them enter the room, or even the facility for that matter. It was as if they had just appeared from thin air, and they had attacked his patient, had tried to kill his patient. SCP-049 had half a mind to use these new subjects to further his studies into the pestilence, given that due to recent events, new live subjects would be hard to come by, and only restrained himself due to the effort Justin had put into saving the girl as she was bleeding out. It would be easy. A simple touch to the creatures as they rested, and he could move their bodies to his lab for future testing before Justin even woke up. Perhaps even apply a Class A amnestic, and Justin wouldn't remember the creatures at all. 4 new test subjects, and life would go on down here in their little hole in the ground. But no, he had given his word. SCP-049 was nothing if not a man of his word, and as long as the creatures honored their promise not to harm his patient any further, SCP-049 would continue to keep his word. He would keep them safe, at least until they could explain themselves and their intentions, which meant dealing with the statue that had been waiting for Justin to walk out the door the moment they'd all stepped into the medical center. Tranquilizing his patient may have been an extreme measure, but in his defense, he did try asking Justin to just stay in the damn room. Opening the door to reveal SCP-173, the plague doctor narrowed his eyes at the statue, before holding up a vial containing the secretions of SCP-035.
I know you know what this is. It may not kill you, but we both know that the pain will be excruciating. The machine may believe you are not attempting to harm my patient, but I do not share such optimism. Continue your attempts to attack him, and you will discover how creative I can be against concrete and rebar.
To prove he wasn't bluffing, SCP-049 released a drop of the substance onto the floor, the metal sizzling in between the 2 Euclid-class SCPs. Feeling his point was made, the doctor stepped back into the room and closed the door. Before he could retreat to his work, however, a knock resounded from the other side of the door. Opening the door once again revealed SCP-173, except now the statue was angled to the side slightly, directing its gaze to the red creatures and the hellhound fast asleep behind the doctor. A brief pause, before 049 relented.
Their intentions so far have not been overtly hostile to our previous warden, beyond their initial encounter anyway. Should that change, however, they would no longer be under my protection.
A blink following the statement revealed the statue had vanished, the sound of scraping stone echoing down the hallway. SCP-049 nodded, before once again retreating into the medical center, the door closing behind him. Both Justin and their new guests had no idea just how much his protection meant for their safety. He had not been exaggerating when he had told the creatures that most of the SCPs in this facility avoided the doctor and knew better than to earn his wrath by attacking those under his care. His reputation was well known both throughout the Foundation and those they contained. SCP-049 sat down in the chair beside the one they called Loona and began making notes in his journal. Justin was his patient, and as such, 049 would keep him safe to the best of the doctor's abilities. The invaders had no such patient privileges, only an agreement that they would not harm each other. So for their sake, SCP-049 hoped they would be smart enough to tread lightly. Loona was walking around in a world of darkness, and for some reason this didn't concern her. In fact, it was kind of relaxing. She was alone in this sea of black, free to let her thoughts wander as she walked in no particular direction.
How did I get here? I don't remember. We were all in the meeting room in the office, and then we were in a... Where were we?
All at once the memories returned, and hit her like a tidal wave. She collapsed to her knees as she was attacked by the barrage of information. The guard attacking her father, the guard trapping Millie behind a wall of electricity that almost fried Moxxie, her grabbing the imp before he could attempt to throw himself through the gate of lightning, and running down metal hallways that seemed to go on forever. Blitz and Moxxie discussing plans on how to rescue Millie when the faint sound of something caught her ears.
I just need to finish it. I have to finish it. Where is it? I have to find it. Need to finish it. Finish it.
Calm yourself.
Loona blinked and looked up to see a human dressed in an old-looking suit with a fedora on his head. Suddenly, they were no longer in a world of complete darkness, but instead sitting on a bench inside of some kind of store. Loona turned to see the man who was sitting next to her on the bench.
Who are you? And what are we doing inside of...
She looked around before spotting a sign with the store name on it.
An IKEA?
The man shrugged before replying.
Call me Richard. And we're not in the IKEA. This is a dream. The last dream you may ever have. For nightmares are coming.
The human proceeded to take out a cigarette and began attempting to light it. Before Loona could ask him what the hell that meant, she was distracted by a group of individuals entering the IKEA store. Actually, wait, she knew these people.
Vortex? Is that you? What are you doing here?
The hellhound that she had crushed over and had that crushed in the span of a day seemed to ignore her, as Verosika Mayday and the rest of her entourage in their human disguises followed Vortex into the store. The succubi and incubi all looked around in awe at the store, for some reason. Verosika stepped forward and shoved her sunglasses into her purse.
Told you people that there was no one in here. The parking lot is almost completely empty. The place must be going out of business. So I say we help these poor souls by taking some of their inventory off their hands. Mama needs some new shit for her pad.
Loona looked around, and sure enough, there wasn't a single person in sight that she could tell. Not even anyone manning the cash registers. If it wasn't for the fact that the place seemed fully stocked like any other store, she would have thought the place had been closed down. The group all walked by the hellhound and the strange man on the bench, not even paying them a glance. Confused, Loona turned back to the man who was still trying to get his lighter to spark a flame for a cigarette.
Why can't they hear me? Or see us, or whatever.
The man turned to her in annoyance.
I told you. This is not the IKEA. This is a dream. One you ought to pay attention to.
The man turned back to his lighter before finally igniting the flame.
Ah, there we go.
The second the flame sparked, Loona noticed the sky outside the stores had turned to a blood red, and the sun seemed to have a more sinister hue. She began to go outside to investigate the strange occurrence before the man reached out and grabbed her hand.
I wouldn't go out there if I were you.
The man pulled her back onto the bench, her feet on the edge of the shadow just missing the light cast by the now ominous sun. Loona turned to the man as he was taking a puff and asked,
What the hell is going on? You better answer me or you're gonna regret...
Actually, I changed my mind. I want to go with Tony this time. Call me Tony.
The man continued on, ignoring her threats.
Now, this is important to remember. This has already happened.
The man pointed to the blood-red sky.
While this has not. Oh, watch your tail.
Watch my...
Was all Loona could get out before a flood whooshed into the doors of the IKEA, running past the two on the bench as Loona stared in shock at the sea of... Loona could only look on in horror as the tidal wave rushed past her, screams and grotesque moans emanating from the great mass as it poured down the aisles of the store. In minutes she could hear screaming, and soon, in their true forms, Verosika, Vortex, and all the other demons in her group were being dragged back out by the flesh. They all clawed and scratched and did their best to free themselves, but in the end it was futile as they were dragged out the doors into the sunlight. And then the flesh left them alone. Vortex turned to look back at the store and, for a moment, it seemed he was looking right at Loona. Then... Loona couldn't help but scream as the other hellhound and his employers all began to fucking melt in the sunlight. Her scream joined theirs as in seconds their body had been morphed into puddles of goop on the ground, and they were still somehow screaming, "What the fuck was this? Oh my god, make it stop, please!" But it didn't stop. In fact, shortly their melted forms began to get back up and seemed to merge together. She could hear Vortex and Verosika screaming in agony, while the rest of the voices soon turned into moans. Careful not to step in the flesh still moving by their bench, Loona turned back to Tony, or whatever his fucking name was, ready to slice him a new one if he didn't start explaining things right now. Only Tony wasn't on the bench next to her. It was Millie. And they weren't on a bench inside an IKEA. They were against the wall in some hotel room. Except the windows were boarded up and all the furniture had been jammed against the door, leaving the room bare. She turned to Millie, only now noticing that she looked like shit. Her clothes were all tattered, her eyes were sunken like she hadn't slept in months, and Loona could see her ribcage starting to show, as if she hadn't eaten in a long time. She waved her hand in front of Millie's face, trying to get her attention.
Millie? Millie, what is happening? Where's Moxxie? Where's Blitz?
Only to see that she was still invisible to the world around her. Millie said nothing as she sat on the floor, dead-eyed stare set on the door with her pistol held loosely in her hand. Loona jumped as something on the other side of the door was attempting to hammer its way in. Millie didn't react at all, like she knew what was on the other side, and that the barricade wouldn't hold for long.
Millie? Honey? I know you're in there!
Was that Moxxie? What the hell was wrong with his voice? Why was Millie crying?
Not him. Anyone but him. Not my Mox.
Millie sobbed as the banging on the door continued. Loona could see the frame on the door starting to crack as the fortification started to wobble.
Come on, Mills! You gotta see this sun. It's the most beautiful thing you'll ever see. You won't have to hide away in there anymore.
Dad?
Loona called out at the new disembodied voice. That was Blitz, all right. What the hell were he and Moxxie doing? What were they talking about? Why was Millie—
No! Millie, don't! Stop!
Loona shouted as she saw the imp begin to put her gun to her head. Millie's arms wobbled as her sobs began to rack her body, her malnourished body looking like she could barely hold the weight of the gun. No matter how much Loona screamed, though, her words still went unheard.
He's right, Millie. It's such a beautiful day. Just like the day we celebrated our anniversary. You were perfect as always. Do you remember the song I sung for you?
The wet, raspy voice of Moxxie began to sing.
Oh, what a thrill when the crimson starts to spill.
Millie's eyes shot open at that, and a small spark of defiance came back to her face as she turned the gun to the door and fired a few wild shots.
Damn you! Damn you both! You are not my Moxxie! My Moxxie's gone! It is our song, not yours! My Mox wouldn't... He wouldn't leave me. I'm sorry, Moxxie.
When the blood
I'm so sorry.
down the walls, and the bodies.
As quick as it had come, the fire in Millie's eyes vanished as she collapsed into another fit of sobs.
When my Nellies get
Faint whispers of apologies escaping her rasps for breath, all the while her husband continued to sing as he and Blitz kept trying to break the door down.
Of all the imps in hell, it's for her that I fell. Oh, Millie.
Millie choked out as she closed her eyes.
That's enough. You don't need to see any more of this.
The voice of Tony came from beside her as he put his hand on her shoulder. Loona couldn't respond, tears in her own eyes as she watched Millie raise the gun back to her head, with her fingers starting to curl around the trigger. Loona closed her eyes and allowed herself to be turned away as the last thing she heard was the door breaking down and a gunshot sounding out from behind her. A brief moment of silence passed before she opened her eyes to see they were standing on a rooftop somewhere that overlooked Pentagram City. They were standing in the shadow of a sign on the roof, as the below city was in chaos. Monsters like the one Loona had seen attack Vortex and Verosika back in IKEA seemed to roam the streets in large masses, some even looking like exorcists, except their wings no longer allowed them to fly. Screams and moans echoing from the terror below, all the while an ominous red sun hung from the sky through some kind of portal right in the middle of that giant pentagram that earned the city its name. At this point, Loona was mentally exhausted. She didn't think she could handle much more of this.
Why are you showing me these things?
The man looked on at the city before turning to her and replying.
I normally work with the Foundation, but they're pretty much gone at this point. And to top it off, that Gestalt is making things more complicated than usual. So, consider this your wake-up call.
Slowly, Loona turned around to see the open door of the stairwell leading down from the roof. Inside the stairs was a single melted mass of flesh that resembled her.
Dad?
Loona choked out. Tony ignored the monster creeping from behind them, continuing to look out on the cityscape.
For what it's worth, I'm sorry. This never should have happened. The world has turned into a living nightmare.
He turned to her, regret in his eyes. The monster that couldn't be her adopted father, yet spoke with his voice, was approaching them.
I wouldn't want to wake up, but unfortunately, you must. One last piece of advice. Put your phone into 914 on the very fine setting, and it will become quite the handy tool for survival.
Before the monster could reach out and grab her, Tony gave her a cheeky wink, before reaching out and snapping his fingers, causing Loona to fade away. As the world was fading to white, she saw Tony turn back to the sign and mumble.
I liked the Happy Hotel better.
Loona!
Blinking her eyes, Loona looked around to see her dad, Moxxie, and Millie gathered around her bed with smiles on their faces.
How you feeling, Looney? The creep in the bird mask didn't take your kidney or anything, right?
He asked as he reached out to ruffle her head. Normally this action would have drawn her irritation, and she would have snapped at his hand, so Blitz couldn't help the surprised expression on his face when instead Loona reached out and drew all three imps into the tightest hug he could ever remember her giving. She was speaking too fast to understand her words, but Blitz was able to pick out things like,
I'm so glad to see you guys!
and
I'm sorry!
which was enough for Blitz. The imps and the hellhound all wrapped their arms around each other as they all began to cry and laugh, happy to be together again. They were a family after all.
What a delightful reunion. At least one patient is happy with my work.
SCP-049 remarked as he looked on at the strange group.
You think I'm bluffing? It's getting super glued to your fucking beak. Bastard. I will find a way.
Snarked the guard, still coming off the effects of the tranquilizer. Blitz ignored the two behind them as his daughter continued her tight grip around him.
I've got all I need right here.